Good evening. You are listening to Radio Free Magonia, the official podcast of the Magonia Research Group. As always, I'm your host, Michael Parrish, and Tom could not be with us tonight due to scheduling issues. Uh, Tonight, my guest is an experiencer.
Hello.
His name is Michael, and his accompanied by his wife. Her name is
Melissa.
Melissa. Okay. And we're just going to begin. Michael, I would like to discuss with you your experiences in chronological order, just starting where it starts, the earliest, and then gradually moving to the most recent. I know you got a lot going on right now.
Yeah. The earliest I can remember is when I was a little kid. I was probably around like 6 or 7. I used to live in Florida with my mom, and the neighbors would actually. It started with, oddly enough, the neighbors came over one night and told my mom that they saw me outside sleepwalking in the nude, and my mom's like, "He doesn't sleepwalk." And then this continued a couple of times, so she eventually like not locked me in my room, but like blocked the room, so if it was actually happening, in her mind it wasn't, but if it was actually happening, she wanted to keep me in there. And then times at night, even if she blocked me in, she found me like in different areas of the house. So, and it always was like in random places in the house, like popped up in the kitchen one time, popped up in the living room, the bed, in her bedroom.
Yes.
So, and that was like the something that would happen quite frequently. And then later on, the neighbors would come back and goes, "Do you know he's still sleepwalking outside?" And I never really thought of it much because, I never looked into things until just recently when more stuff started happening.
Yeah.
But back then, like, I'd also like see shadows popping up from time to time, and just random lights outside when my bedroom actually faced into the woods. So it was kind of hard for like street lights or like car lights to flash into the room because there was only like one bedroom window and it faced right into the woods where no cars were coming.
Okay.
So
Now
that was my earliest experiences.
The nudity I cannot account for.
Well,
however, I do know of two stories that may be relevant to yours that might be related to yours. The one, this is from a woman who had a blog. I read this online a number of years ago. Who was a child, lived in a rural area, and she described how oftentimes she would feel compelled by this external force to kind of go out and begin wandering towards the woods, into the woods, almost as if she'd fallen under a spell. And it wasn't only with like great intervention, i.e., her grandmother yelling herself hoarse at her, that she would snap out of it and come back. And she too showed up unexpectedly in different places. There's another story like that in the very last chapter of Joshua Cutchin. He's an author who we've had on the show before, of his book Thieves in the Night, where once again it was a young person. I forget if it was a man or a woman, rural area, and just unexplained relocation, unexplained movement. I have no real insight into that. It could be related in some way to alien abduction.
I don't know about that. Like I said, I've never really looked into it, but like later on in life, other weird things would happen. Things would go missing. You know, things would get broken in one room, and I'd get blamed for it, and I would be nowhere in the room. Nobody else would be in the room.
Yeah, poltergeist type behavior.
Yeah, that kind of thing. Where
he was an only child, he was the only child living in the home at the time.
Yeah,
and the child is always the one to blame.
Yeah, of course. I mean, he did the same thing.
Yeah, and
it's like the Simpsons episode with the curfew and all that. Now, as for, you mentioned shadow people, shadow figures. I saw those growing up. My mother saw those. Those are like staples in this phenomena. Almost everyone I've talked to in my life that has a history of these experiences has seen shadow people, usually lurking around their home. If you don't mind me asking, what did they look like? Like, what shape were they?
They would just be like tall figures, like like a shadow of a man. Actually, one weird thing that really happened was I was in a shelter as a kid, and one night I could see out into the hallway, and this figure was in the hallway, and this was in like the middle of the night. I had woken up to go to the bathroom, and like instead of going to the bathroom, I just froze because it was the creepiest thing. It was like the shadow of this really tall man with a wide-brimmed hat, and he was heading into one of the other rooms. And then the next day, we were eating breakfast, and one of the other girls in the shelter said she had this really weird dream about this guy that she called the Candy Man, who had like this wide brim hat, and he was coming into her room, and it was just like I frozen, like I went stock white listening to the story. I was like, holy crap, I saw that guy last night. And it was that kind of.
That's the Hat Man. That's another staple. Are you familiar with the author Heidi Hollis?
No. Like I said, I've never really looked into any of this because,
we're both from Native American backgrounds, and the one thing that we were always raised with, and it's kind of something that we both connected on, was that if you see things, they're merely a reflection of your eye, and they're not really there, and you can't acknowledge them, and you shouldn't read up and look into them because it can encourage more things to come and happen. I remember when we were first dating, this was something that he had mentioned, and I was like, oh my God, I was raised the same way, which is odd because I'm Canadian and he's American, and I wouldn't think that these very small tribes would have the same beliefs, but that's exactly how we were raised with. If there's something there, you look away and you ignore it.
Yeah, and it's worth noting, it's not just Native Americans who believe that, who will tell you that, who will tell their children that. Anyone with any experience in this shit will testify that, if you build it, they will come.
Exactly.
Yep.
In my case, like, I've been researching this intensively almost half of my life. But because I myself am a lifelong experiencer, it's already came. It's already here. So I don't really have anything to lose by by doing this. I don't have anything to gain either. But there's nothing. There's no connection that it could make that it hasn't already made. But the Hat Man, that is a very common stock character that a lot of people describe. As I said, Heidi Hollis wrote a full book on the subject. She kind of popularized the concept back in the early 2000s. He's not well liked.
No, I didn't like seeing it.
I want to ask you this. He was wearing a duster, right?
Yeah, it looked like a guy in like a long trench coat with like a like I said, a wide brim hat, and like like I said, I've never really read up on any of the experiences. Other things that I've seen before is when I was 13, I was living on the streets with my mom.
Yes.
And she got a job painting a garage, the interior of this garage. So the owner let us stay outside the garage. We lived out of a van, and I would sleep outside on top of the van at night. And right next to the garage was a cemetery, and I would see lights in the cemetery. I'd hear disembodied voices.
Okay.
And I had actually seen full apparitions, and I would have like my name called out, and just like the craziest things. And we had to stay there for about a week, and literally I went from being completely afraid to like not giving a damn anymore, because I was experiencing it for a week straight at that time.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this. You heard your name being called. Is that all you heard? Or were they putting things forth? Were they asking you things?
There would be like, Michael, come here, come join us, that kind of thing. And
yeah,
it would just,
because see, I only had that happen once. And the thing is, they didn't really tell me anything. They just kind of said my name. Like they were calling to it, and it sounded almost like they were in pain, like they needed my assistance.
yeah,
These are ruse. These apparitions you saw, what did they look like?
Well, mostly it would be like the main one that I saw, which kind of like jogged my memory, was this lady in white, and
yes,
it would like be a fog, and then there would be a light, and then she would walk out of the light of the fog.
Okay.
And she's a consistent in his life.
Yeah, I think she attached to me from then on, but I never really thought about her until I actually was in the military, in the Navy, and I had an experience when I was in the Navy while I was in my Corps school training, where I was sleeping one night, and then in a dream I saw her, and then I awoke from the dream like in what almost like a sleep paralysis, but when I opened my eyes, she was still above me. And then she disappeared, and then something grabbed my arm.
Yeah.
And when we first met, he told me, like, I've had this experience with this woman in white, and you need to be aware. And he explained this exact, situation. And I was like, honestly, like, it just sounds like you have sleep paralysis, because I had sleep paralysis as a teen, and I suffered from that dramatically. And so I said to him, it probably was just your mind, there's nothing to it. And then it was about a year and a half later that I actually saw her in the middle of the night, and she wasn't very happy with me.
Okay.
We think what had happened was we had a fight, and we had gone to bed upset, and then in the middle of the night I got up, went to the bathroom, and came back, and she was on his side of the bed, and I just felt the anger coming from her, and I screamed and turned the light on, and there was nothing there.
Okay, you say on his side of the bed. She was laying on top of him or with him?
She was standing
above me.
Yeah, standing above him on his side of the bed, like as if she was claiming him, and she was I could just feel this like anger, and I was like she's seriously upset over the fight, and we made up and over that because of the fact that it was so terrifying.
Sorry, say that again.
Oh, it was a joke. I said, you're the one with the ring on your finger, not her.
Yeah, no.
It's interesting because the woman in white is similar to the Hat Man, that she's like a stock character. A lot of people who have these experiences describe a woman in white or something close to a woman in white. It's another motif. It's another this phenomena, whatever it is, it seems to subsist on just generic stock characters.
Yeah.
I don't know. I haven't really done much research into the women in white phenomena, so I'm sorry that I can't really tell you much there. Other than it's there. According to Joshua Cutchin, there's a link between her and Bigfoot.
Huh.
So, you know, make of that what you will. I haven't looked into that myself either. Now, I hate to backtrack
Yeah.
during an interview, but there were some things I wanted to ask you about what you described before. The shadows that you saw in your childhood home, what were they doing? Like, where would they typically lurk?
Well, normally I'd catch them out of the corner of my eyes, coming down the hallway, or if I'm going into the bathroom, they would peer around the corner from the living room areas.
Mm-hmm.
If I was home alone, which being the bad childhood that I had, I was home alone quite a bit. I would hear noises coming from the kitchen area and then go in there and turn on a light, and you'd see like the shadow just disappear all of a sudden. Like I said, things would be moved around.
Did they move fast?
They moved very fast.
Yes. Yeah, I had the same thing. They were almost like Olympic sprinters, just right through the room, and then they would
Yeah.
kind of just disappear into the walls. But the thing was, I didn't see them in the corner of my eyes. I saw them head on.
Now, I have seen them a couple of times head on, where it would be like, I would think somebody would be trying to get into the house that we were in,
Mm-hmm.
and I'd be, just freaked out because, you could we had a back door that had like that mudroom area, and you could see into the darkness, and then it would be like somebody standing in the darkness, and you'd be like, hello, somebody
Yeah.
there? And then, all of a sudden that full on figure is gone. So
Yeah.
it was almost like, as soon as you acknowledged that they were there, they would disappear.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't explain that. You'd think they have the power to frighten you, and they obviously do. Then they wouldn't be so skittish.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They wouldn't be like a house cat when the neighbor comes by. But that it's interesting you mentioned that because that's a scenario I've kind of played with in my head is what if you have a home invader? You have a burglar, an intruder of some sort who breaks in, at night while this phenomena is going on, and the two of you find yourself in kind of an enemy mine situation against it.
Yeah.
Yeah, at first I was going to take your laptop and your flat screen, but yeah, what was that
Yeah.
just knocked the lamp over?
Yeah. No, like I said, I didn't have the greatest of childhood. We actually did have an intruder at one time
Oh,
where who tried to break in through the front door. Now, I
mm-hmm.
do have an older brother, but he was in and out of the home. He was in and out of foster homes quite a bit when we were a kid. And there was one experience that we had where we were home alone. We had a dog who was with us, but we had somebody that actually tried to break into the house, and then the dog actually attacked them. But the dog, before this whole incident, was reacting to things on the wall. Like he it would see things, and you would feel like something was there. And then the guy broke in, and the dog just freaked out and took out the guy.
Yeah.
So, but before where we were living, we would have like shadows there, but the dog would see things that I would see, and I could always, like, we have a dog now who sees things when I see it as well. So
yeah,
the animals reacting.
Animals can sense these things before we can. I think it's been theorized that because cats and dogs have more rays and more cones in their eyes. They see more of the light spectrum, the EM spectrum, than we do. Yes, exactly. And that these things naturally live in those kind of bands of the spectrum, those parts of the spectrum that they can see them. I don't know how much stock I really put in that because they can't see that much more than we can. But it's interesting speculation nonetheless. Well, let me ask you this.
Go ahead.
Um, in this home, was the phenomena more heavily concentrated in some parts than in others? Were there some
Usually,
rooms, some floors, it just felt the atmosphere felt particularly thick?
usually it was around me. I mean, most of the time. Um, my mom always thought like I was gifted, I
Mm-hmm.
guess, because I could when I was a kid I could like sense things, I guess, is what she said.
Yeah.
But I could always almost read her mind, she would say.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, things would always happen around me quite a bit. Uh, I was highly accident prone, but
Mm-hmm.
you know, there was things that just would pop up around me that she'd be like, this isn't normal. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, it usually we moved around a lot, so like a lot of times we would be in different places, and everything would always center around me,
Yeah.
and um, it was just like weird things would happen where, like I said, things would go missing, and end up in my room, even though I know it wasn't me doing it, and
Mm-hmm.
or things would go missing from my room, and it was just like stupid things like
Yeah.
uh, a small toy or things like that, and then things that would go missing would turn up again in the spot that you knew they were, but you couldn't, no matter how much you looked for it, it wasn't there. And then like a day later, there it is, right in the spot that you knew where it was.
We tend to call that brownies because that's what I was always told when
Yeah.
we were younger, is that the little things are like some sort of brownie or fairy creature, and
Yeah.
that's what they're doing. They're playing a trick on you, and
Yeah,
that's normal.
I've seen these little. I it's hard to say. It's like these little humanoid shadow figures. They watch from a distance, but then they're like mischievous.
Yes.
So I've seen those forever.
It's
And
it's oh, now let me ask you this. When you said when you were living near this cemetery you saw lights.
yeah, like just disembodied lights floating in the through the cemetery, and I could actually watch them. They would actually like go through gravestones.
Okay, so they could pass through solid surfaces.
Yeah,
Now they were circular, I assume?
yeah. Some of them were in balls. Some were just like straight lines zipping through. Like if you ever seen like when somebody does that photo effect where they're got like a sparkler or something and they run a line.
Yes.
Yes, things like that. Um,
What what
circular
what color was
fogs.
it?
What color?
Yeah.
Uh, Usually they were like that intense white light.
Okay.
And some of them were just like soft white orbs that would fly through,
Hmm.
things like that. And it just like after being there for the time that I was, it was just like, oh, okay, here they go again. You
Yeah.
know?
It's been theorized that those orbs actually are the entities in their natural state, before they assume whatever form they're going to assume to appear to you.
Yeah.
There has been, or there have been stories that I've read of people seeing, for instance, like a giant black dog with glowing red eyes in the woods, and they see it slowly dissipate like smoke into
Yeah.
this.
I've
Or
seen that as well.
Yeah,
way.
we've seen that.
You've seen an orb change shape.
I've seen the black dog.
Yeah, the dog with the red eyes and that it turns to mist.
Yes.
Yeah.
I've seen the black dog. It actually tried to run me off the road.
Okay.
In the middle of the night, one night, I was driving home, and we lived in the middle of the woods in Florida.
Yeah.
And out of the darkness, this large black shape came straight, running right at me, and then swerved at the last second, and I could see the red eyes and everything, and it hit the front end of the car and then disappeared into the night.
Okay.
Just like, and it was only there for like maybe a good minute, and it was gone.
Now, in this home you lived in as a child, you saw the big shadow people and the little brownies at the same time.
Yeah.
In the same setting. Okay, I've never heard of that before. I did have an experience myself growing up where I often, because of the things I was seeing, I was often afraid to spend the night in my room. So my parents would let me just like sleep on the floor beside their bed. And I remember one night doing just that, peering under their bed across the room and seeing these tiny, spindly shadow figures, no distinct features, about the size of little green army men, just walking around.
That would be about the size of them. Like a action figure, a little bit taller, almost maybe about a foot tall at times, but they would range in size from about a foot tall down to about 6 inches, and they would usually they would be popping up at the end of the bed, or just being very mischievous.
Yeah,
like you could hear little footsteps across the room, and then I would I always had to, when I was a kid, I'd always want to sleep under the covers because of things that go bump in the night. And
yes, same here. I almost asphyxiated more than once.
Yeah.
Jeez.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but the figures I saw, they were like 3 inches tops. Like I said, like little green army men.
Wow.
And there was no accompanying sound. It was interesting. Like there was just a number of them, like a crowd. I saw some of them were walking side by side. Others were standing in a circle as if having a conversation. It looked just like human beings on a street scene.
Huh.
Public scene. That's
Yeah.
how they were laid out. That's how they were conducting themselves. It was just so bizarre. And I saw behind them vaguely. I can distinguish. I can vaguely recall this like wall, not the wall to my parents' room, but like a wall to a building. Like I was seeing a tiny glimpse into some other world. It was just bizarre. But
Now
so
I also
go.
remember being a kid and having, I guess you'd call them out of body experiences, where I would be dreaming and then know that I'm dreaming, and then like I could start running in the dream, and then run out of my own room through the wall into the outside, and then just like bound into the air and like jump for long distance, and I could actually feel when I landed and everything. So it was kind of weird, like that sense as well, because it felt like I was in another world at times, but I knew I was dreaming or experiencing a dream, or what I thought was a dream. And then like it would just feel like I wasn't actually dreaming at times, because it would be so vivid and so real.
And these were entirely involuntary?
Yeah.
Did you ever try to like recreate them on your own?
Yes, I have. I actually, I've really gotten into lucid dreaming, where I could actually like tell when I realize I'm in a dream, I can actually separate myself from me in the dream and direct the dream, and kind of like be like all right, now I want to do this. And then I could go back into myself in the dream and be able to recreate those kind of situations.
Okay.
I've experienced deja vu quite a bit when I was a kid. You know, like we would, my mom liked to go to like old farmhouses across the state to like go barn sailing. And like we'd come across a place and I'd be like, wow, this is so weird. I've been here before, even though we've never been there. And I'd be like, you know, I could give details about the place that I shouldn't have been able to, yet we were there, and it was just like, yeah, I know where this is, and it was just, that's the kind of thing that she would always be like, yeah, you're got this really weird gift.
So how do you interpret those experiences? Do you think those could have been places you'd lived in past lives, or do you think you just could sense the information about them psychically?
Well, it would all be part of that dream kind of thing where I would escape from my body and then, just bound around and could literally like cross states in the dream and just be like landing in another area. And then,
I think if you had to compare it to something, though, it would be similar to a psychic experience where you're, foreshadowing of something you're seeing. We tend to do that a lot. I've had a lot of experiences where in my family, we tend to, back when you had phones to answer manually, rather than a cell phone, we were known to pick up the phone before it even rang.
Okay.
It was very common for all the females in my family to do that. We knew when things were going to happen, and I've had, I guess you would say, visions of things like, I remember when I was younger, I had a dream. My mom was holding a little baby, and she was saying about how she loved this little girl. She's my little princess. And I remember waking up and I was so upset that I'm the only girl in my family. And I was so upset that my mom was treating this other girl the way that she should treat me.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until much later in life that I had the deja vu come to realization where my mom was holding my newborn niece and she was cooing and coddling this girl. And I was like, oh my God, this is the dream. This is exactly what happened. She said word for word, everything. And I remember I was just like this has happened. And it explains, for me, I get that a lot. That happens to me more than anything.
Yeah, I've had minor cases of precognition, usually in the form of very brief dreams or just brief images in my head.
I often get the where I could predict. Uh-oh.
Your voice kind of cut out there briefly.
Can you hear us?
Yeah.
Oh
no.
Dropped.
Oh, there we go.
There we go. I think we have a bad connection right now.
It's okay. I can hear you fine.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Well, what I was going to say was, for me, it's always for really insignificant events.
Yeah.
Like I can predict the song on the radio
tomorrow morning. Like that's what I foresee. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. So we've covered. Yeah, we've covered childhood. We've covered adolescence. I think. What happens next? What happens as you enter your 20s?
Well, like I said, when I was in my 20s, the lady in white came back really hard and would follow me around. Okay. I would see her all the time in my dreams, and if I moved to different locations, she'd get very upset, and
she still does.
I'd be like, oh, I would know when she was back because things would fly across the room.
Okay.
I've actually had like a screwdriver that hit me one time that would be on a ledge like way far away, and
Yeah.
And all of a sudden it would just like fly across the room and be like,
anytime we move to a new location,
she gets mad.
She gets upset. We've moved from the US to Canada multiple times, and normally when this happens, about a week to 2 weeks after we've moved, you can tell when she comes back because there's this 2-week period where stuff gets tossed off tables, things vibrate. I used to have a video. Unfortunately, I don't anymore. I lost that phone. I had a video of the stuff on top of the refrigerator vibrating, and no power was on in the room, so nothing could cause the fridge to vibrate, and everything that was on top of the fridge did this like violent vibrating, and like stuff was falling off. And I have video camera. It's unfortunately it was really bad quality because my hand was shaking so bad, where stuff was just flying off, up from this vibration. It was very weird. She gets very upset when he does this, moves, and you can't find him.
Michael, you tell me she appeared in your dreams. Could you elaborate on that? Like, what would be going on in these dreams when she'd appear? Where would these dreams take place? What would the environment, the setting be?
It would literally be like I could be dreaming, and then all of a sudden she'd come out of nowhere and be like, why did you leave me behind? Or, I finally found you, that kind of thing. She would actually like, I could be dreaming about anything. And all of a sudden she would appear in the dream and be like, I found you, and that kind of thing.
So
she'd actually
dreams that had nothing to do with her, she could intrude on.
Yes.
Ooh, there has to be some kind of psychic defense for that. If you can't be sovereign over your own dreams, that's what. Now, let me ask you this: what does her voice sound like?
It almost sounds like God, it's kind of hard to explain because it's when she normally talks, it's almost like feathery and almost like somebody who is just enamored with you, like just completely wanting to be with you at all times. But she has this soft, feathery voice, and it's usually like almost honestly, it's dreamlike because it's just like,
you said before, it's kind of echoey.
Yeah, it's like, almost kind of echoey. Like it doesn't really.
It's ethereal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And could you describe her appearance to me somewhat?
Long flowing white hair, probably in her mid-20s to early 30s. Yeah. Flowing white gown that just like billows out. Sometimes really silvery, and there's always like a backlight to her. And just really,
like she has a light that's coming from inside of her.
Okay, like she's self-luminescent, like
right, and like always has like this weird glow all the way around her. Very, I don't want to say translucent skin, but like very soft, almost fuzzy looking white skin.
Because you know what I'm thinking of is the Ghost of Christmas Past from Christmas Carol.
Sort of, but it's I know what you're talking about, but oh God, what was that? You ever see Scrooged?
Yes, with Bill Murray.
Yeah, remember Carol Kane's, or is it Carol Kane? I can't remember. The one who did the Ghost of Christmas Present in it.
Yes.
She had the without the wings, almost like her, but sort of like how she kind of looked in that movie.
Well, what do you think she is?
A spirit that attached to me, or some other worldly creature that attached to me. And
I think that she realized, she saw how mistreated he was as a child, and she attached to him because of this. and she just wants to mother him. That's how I see her, and that's how I always feel when I see her. It's like she's not like, oh, I'm so jealous that you're with him. It's more of like, I have to approve of you to be with him, like a mother would approve of someone dating their, like, that's how it felt. Like she was like, oh, well, you know, you shouldn't be mad at him, so I'm gonna scare the crap out of you when you come out of the bathroom. Or it's always situations like that, very motherly, not in a jealous, like, girlfriend kind of way.
Yeah. Is there anything distinctive about her facial features, her nose, or her eyes, or?
Actually, you know, it's like I said, she always looks like she's in her early 30s, mid 20s. Just you can't really always make out her facial features because of the glow that comes from her. But if I had to describe what she kind of looked like, man,
it's such a hard thing to explain.
Yeah, I would actually.
You can't really see. Every time I've seen her, you can't really see it because of this glow that she emits. You can't really see what her face looks like.
I'd actually, like, the only time I ever really saw her face up close, I would compare her to what Michelle Pfeiffer used to look like when she was younger.
Okay. So basically, button nose, very delicate featured.
Yeah.
That's interesting. You know, the more you describe her to me, the less she sounds like a typical woman in white figure, and the more she sounds like something else. Reminding me almost of like a Marianne apparition or something like that. I have really nothing to tell you about that. But moving on. When did the two of you first meet?
We met 18 years ago.
Yeah, we've been so together just over 19 years.
Yeah, he was 30 when we met.
Okay, so so basically, if we've covered your 20s, do you think we have, or is there more that you want to say?
Well,
that's pretty much it. Yeah.
Pretty much that's it. But I have seen, like I said, I've seen the brownies all the time. Yeah. I still see them to this day.
Yeah, and then when we met, and we got married pretty quickly after we met, and after that, like, he explained, you know, like, I see weird things, and I was like, that's cool, you know, I'm not the sweetest of of people. I won't cuss, but you know what I said before. And he was like, that's cool, you know, I can deal with kind of a diva if you can deal with weird things happening. And I was like, okay. And then things things very quickly started happening, and it was very overwhelming at first. I used to have a lot of panic attacks, and then we moved to Canada, and things were at first quiet, and then my parents, we moved in with my parents. My dad got sick, and we needed to move in with him. And it became pretty hellish. That house was very, very haunted. All the time you would hear one person would be, you know, upstairs, and somebody else would be downstairs, and the babies would be sleeping, because we did raise my niece and nephews. So we'd run upstairs to get the baby, because you heard baby crying, and you'd run upstairs, and either the baby was asleep or they were outside with my mom, and it'd be like, what? Why is there crying?
There was actually one experience where I was home alone. Everybody went out to go shopping, and I was downstairs. We were remodeling the basement because we had some water damage. Yeah. So I was downstairs in the basement clearing out all the old drywall, and I heard everybody come home, and I was like, oh, okay. I heard them. I heard footsteps come into the house. I heard kids giggling and laughing, and then all of a sudden, I went to go see what was going on, and I heard the door slam, and I was like, "Oh, okay, they must, they probably need help bringing stuff in." So I go upstairs to see what's going on, and there's nobody there. And I'm like, oh, what the hell? Did they just leave again? So when they actually did finally get home, I was literally pissed. Okay. I was yelling at them.
It was like 10 minutes later, and then we had come home, and he immediately came flying up the stairs like something was wrong. And we had all just come in the door with hands full of stuff. And he's like, why would you do that to me? That's rude. You know I was waiting for you to come home. And we were all like, excuse you? Like, we were shopping, you know? We didn't know what was going on. And he was like, you came home and then you left again? And we were like, no, we've been out. Like, nobody's come home. No, everybody was still in the car. It was just me. And my mom had come in the door first. And he was like, no, and then he explained, and we were all like, okay, that's really weird. And I was like, we do this. We have a thing where we say, I swear to God. And then you say, you know, this happens. And it pretty much means that, you know, like, I swear to God, I didn't do this. And it's somebody speaking from the truth.
Yeah.
And I was like, I swear to God, I did not come home. This is the first time we've been home in like 2 hours. I don't know what you're talking about, but nobody's home. The doors were locked when we came in. So I don't know what's going on. Mm-hmm. And I mean, after that, there was lots of situations where we would do that. And then the lady in white, this is where I have to say, because I had sleep paralysis, I have to say it was a flare up of my sleep paralysis. But I had the lady in white pin me down on the bed at one point. And that was the hardest thing that we went through, was because we had moved and she came back. And that was her saying, like, you took him away from me. Why did you do that? Mm-hmm. And then like 2 days later, he had a dream about her crying and saying, you know, you have to tell me before you leave. You need to do certain things. You've hurt my feelings. And it was.
And while we were actually living with her parents actually saw things happening.
Yeah.
Like pictures would like move on the wall, or
pots and pans
rattling.
Yeah. All the time. My mom, you would hear from like another room, my mom would yell, just leave it alone.
Yeah.
And, you know, you'd be like, Mom, who are you yelling at? Well, and she'd be like, yeah, she's wiggling the pots again. And if she doesn't stop it, I'm going to come in there and straighten her out. And it'd be like, you're yelling at a ghost, Mom. Like, what's going on?
What do you mean by pictures would move on the walls? Like
they'd fall off the wall.
I thought you meant the images on the paintings were moving.
No.
No,
that was creepier than anything.
Yeah,
that would be creepier than anything.
Actually, they've seen reflections of her so. Speak of the devil.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Apparently, she just made herself known.
She just the vacuum in our house just like attacked our cat, who wasn't even near it.
Okay.
So I don't know if you heard that over the.
I did.
Yeah. So. You know,
I forget what we were. So the paintings would be like very well secured on the wall, and they would just hop off the wall, like as if like somebody hit the back of the wall and it jumped off the wall all the time. They actually ended up taking down. They had really expensive artwork, and they ended up taking the art off the wall because it happened so often that they didn't want it to break.
Yeah.
Now. I'm going to point out the sound of a baby crying is a very, very common experience. That, once again, like the Hat Man, like the Woman in White, that is a very common, just stock, like a trope, like a cliche. I don't know why that is. I don't know why it chooses to manifest like that, but that's what it does. It does. Mm-hmm. Now, you had seen the Woman in White prior to moving into this place.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this: how long were you with him before you met her?
We lived in a really small apartment, and I never saw her. And then we moved to a really big apartment, and he previously had lived in this apartment. I moved in with him and then we ended up getting this bigger apartment together. And when we did that, that's when she showed up. It's like she hates the moving, the being lost from him, the disconnection from him. And that's when I saw her, and I didn't know it was her at first. I just had saw somebody, and I had thought that the neighbor had come into our apartment, because I had just seen like someone dressed in white walk across the kitchen, and I was in the bedroom, and I was like, oh, she's in the apartment. Okay. So I came out of the bedroom, and I was like, hey, Olivia. And I was like, oh, Olivia, looking around, and there was nobody there.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. And then when he came home, I was like, I'm pretty sure Olivia was in the apartment, but she didn't stay. She left or something. Like, I didn't see her leave, but she was gone. And he was like, what does she look like? So I explained, she was tall. She was dressed in white, and it didn't seem anything weird. And he was like, uh-oh. And I was like, what's uh-oh? And he's like, I'm pretty sure it's the lady in white that I told you about. And I was like, I don't think so. I didn't believe it at first. I just assumed that it was the sleep paralysis, because that's what I had. And so I was like, it's nothing. We'll get past this. And I'm sure you had a dream a couple days. It's always like, and then he has a dream afterward where he sees her and talks to her.
Literally, I said just a few days later, oh, yeah, she's back.
Yeah, and he had said to me, I told her that, you're my girlfriend now, and it's serious, so she's to be nice to you. And I was like, okay. And then after we got married, which was about 3 months into our relationship, we got married. It was pretty quick. And then after the wedding, after we went camping for our honeymoon. And then we came back from the camping, and that's when she was in the bedroom. And that's when I seen her with the big glow, and like, it was just enormous, the light that came from her. And I was like, I can't believe what I just saw. And I told him what I saw, and he's like, it's the lady in white. I told you. Like, and from then on, I was like, oh my God, like, he's not kidding. Like, this is seriously something that's attached to him. And I'm a firm believer in the smudging and cleansing. So that's immediately what I did. As soon as he was out of the house, because he's actually allergic to sage.
Yeah.
So I grabbed like a big thing of white sage, and I cleansed the whole apartment. And I was like, you don't have to leave, but you have to be, you can't have negativity here. We can coexist. You have to be friendly. And then, things calm down after that.
For a little bit.
Yeah, for a little bit. It's always like it calms down right after that. That doesn't work anymore.
Okay. Now, as for this poltergeist phenomena that was going on in this home, do you think she was the one behind that, or do you think there was a cast of characters there and she just happened to be one of them?
I think it was a cast of characters, because they still experience things now.
Yeah. Okay. It started when we moved in, but it's been continuing. Actually, one night her brother was there by himself, and he says he'll never stay in their house again by himself.
He had gone through a divorce, and I had gotten a phone call, and I was at work, and he said, "Can you come home from work?" And I was like, no, I can't come home from work. What's going on? And he's like, listen, stuff is going on here. I know you guys told me that's, like pots and pans and little things in the corner of your eye move. He said, but I didn't think it would be this intense. You need to get home. So he actually paid for a cab for me to go from work 15 minutes away and come home, because he was so terrified. He's 2 years younger than me. It was a grown man, literally, like, he was almost in tears that nothing had ever happened to him before. And this was the first time. And he said he wouldn't ever tell me what happened. He was just like, I need you now. And I assumed that it was part of his divorce, and that maybe he was sad or something. And then when I got there, he quickly was like, I am never going to be in this house again. He was supposed to move in with like all of us. And then he didn't end up moving in because he was so scared that he was like, you know what? I'm just going to bite the bullet and go buy a place.
Okay. Now, you said earlier that you have had premonitions, or you have seen events occur before they do, years before they do.
Yeah.
Did you foresee your meeting him?
My husband?
Yeah.
I did. I didn't tell you that.
No.
That's really weird that you would even ask that. I always thought that it was something really weird. He has a big tattoo on his back.
Yeah.
And it's dragon wings. And I always said that I had a dragon lover. And it was like this joke as like I was young, like I was 12 years old when I saw this.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I had first met Michael, I said to my mom, like, how do you know somebody is worth being with? And she said, it's a leap of faith. You just have to go. And I said, well, how is he ever going to compare to the dragon lover? And we laughed and joked. And we were, again, on our way shopping. And we pull into a parking spot. And the license plate in front of us said soulmate.
Ooh, that's a synchronicity.
Like, yeah. And I was like, that's it. I'm going to take a chance on this guy. It's got to be worth it. I know he's, because, again, I'm Canadian and he was in Florida. And I was like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to bite the bullet. I'm going to go on vacation in Florida. And I'm going to meet him. Mm-hmm. So it was kind of like really weird that you say that, did I have that premonition? Because that I did. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. I just always seen somebody that was Native American that had light hair. And when I met him, he was dyeing his hair because he does have white hair. Yeah. And I said, you don't have to dye your hair anymore. And he was like, yeah, but it's white, like stark white hair. And I was like, period? Yeah. And it was like, I had always seen this typical guy that I was going to be with. And, it turns out that that's who I was seeing was him.
I like you guys' story because it's obvious to me that you were drawn together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's very obvious. And it's also very obvious to me that both of you were marked at some point, maybe not in your lives, but maybe in the lives of your ancestors for this experience, for these experiences. And at the same time, part of these experiences is an entity that is not entirely cool with this. So it's like behind the scenes, behind the veil of everyday life, there's different sides, different teams kind of orchestrating things, kind of conspiring against each other. Mm-hmm. That's very interesting. Very, very interesting. Now, go on.
She said I have white hair. My hair actually started turning white when I was 13. So, and nobody else in my family has premature graying. Mm-hmm. But, and something else that, like, I also I heard you on your podcast before talking about Rh negative blood type.
Yes.
And I am Rh negative.
Yep, so am I.
Yeah, and I think that is actually part of what is causing or what attracts all this stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
I'll just speak briefly. I researched this extensively about a year and a half ago, and my results were inconclusive. It does seem that a statistically significant number of Rh negative people do have these lives, do have these experiences, but not all of us do. And there are also a lot of positive people, Rh positive people, who also have these experiences. So I'm not entirely sure if Rh negative is the decisive factor, if that is the X factor, or if it's some other characteristic that is often correlates with Rh negative blood, often but not always. I think in a way, yeah, Rh negative is part of the puzzle, but it's also kind of a red herring.
Yeah, I think Rh blood is similar to, I hate to call into it like a sci-fi kind of movie or something, but you hear about vampires being attracted to certain people.
Yeah.
I think that's what it is, that there's it's like, oh, they can smell that his blood is sweeter than normal blood. And it's not like it's more of a, oh, let's only go after those people. It's just like, well, he was in a graveyard. He smells sweeter than the other people are. So of course they're going to attach and go to him. rather than the other people.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that the other people aren't going to have that happen to them.
Mm-hmm. Now, Michael, before you were rudely interrupted, what's going on?
Well, currently we have something that has been stalking us for the last couple of weeks.
Yep.
Yeah, and it is a humanoid.
They are a humanoid.
Well, yeah,
there's more
we
than
think
one.
there's more than one.
Okay.
But it is a between 6 to 7 feet tall.
Mm-hmm.
It looks sort of like as if a deer and a wolf kind of crossed with each other, but it's really gaunt white figures that have been literally like following us around at night, throwing things at us from the rooftop. As a matter of fact, we went out last night, and
oh yeah, that was so weird.
It literally like threw stuff at us from the rooftop across the other side of the complex that we're in. So, but that's the newest thing that's been happening to us.
Yeah, there was really good lighting on certain areas, but not in other areas. So I actually asked the complex to install spotlights in the areas where there's these trees, because for whatever reason, it's like they jump from the tree to the roof all the time, because that's where the mimic was coming from, was in the trees. So now we have a spotlight in the tree, and I don't think it's very happy that we did that, because I was walking with him, obviously, and now that the spotlight's there, we had said, now that I'm so glad that this spotlight's here, because now there's nobody in the tree. I know we can look up in the tree and I can see that there's nobody up in there. And from the roof on the other side, it's almost like it ran to the edge and threw off like 8 handfuls of leaves. Ooh. It was just out of nowhere. There was no wind or anything, and all these leaves came over and a couple acorns. And I was like, okay. And he's like, okay, we don't, and again, we do this, you don't talk about it, you don't see it. So he's like, no more talking about this, at least outside. We seem to be able to talk about it in the house normally without having too much issues.
So it looks like a dog and a deer and a wolf combined.
It has a deer head.
Okay.
But its muscles are similar to like a canine's muscles are.
A lot of people have said, have you looked at the dog man? And I would say it kind of looks like that, but it has like
a deer head.
It has
it sounds a bit more exotic to me than a dog.
Yeah.
Man. Now
the back legs are like hoof, like almost like the satyr's legs out of Greek mythology.
Yes.
And then the body is humanoid with long arms that just look distended, and then like really Popeye-ish forearms, and then long hands with claws, and then it's gaunt, like like it's starving.
Yeah.
And then
it appears solid.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's been very solid. It's the first night I saw it, the first time I saw it, it was in our parking lot, and I was like, I didn't really. It's one of those things where your rational mind goes, "No, that's not what you're seeing." And I was like looking at it, and it was in the shadows, and it was standing there looking at me, and then all of a sudden it just jumped up to the roof. And I was like, "No, I didn't see that," And then we get out to the courtyard. And we were out in the courtyard, and all of a sudden,
I was in the middle of the courtyard, and you were.
I was just entering into the courtyard. She was in the middle of the courtyard with our dog, and I turned and looked up because I heard something. So I turned and looked up, and it was peering out over.
It was leaning over the top of the roof, looking down at us, and I had seen the dog look up, like he was terrified, and I was like, what is going on? Like, we do have bats in our area, So I thought maybe like he could see the bats. So I looked up and I saw this thing, and I didn't know what to think, and I was just staring at it, and I heard Michael say, "I'm not high enough for this."
I was jokingly like, I thought I was being delusional at first. I was like, "Oh yeah, I'm not high enough for this. This is crazy."
Yeah.
Right.
And it sort of snapped me out of looking at it, and then I looked at him, and I looked back, and it was gone. And I was like, oh, like, I don't know what just happened. So I went over to him, and I was going to whisper, your mind my mind is seriously playing tricks on me. I swore I saw something.
And I thought she was playing a joke on me or something, because she was like, it's kind of weird when your mind starts playing tricks on you. And I was like, okay, wait, what do you?
Yeah, and
were you just joking around with me on something?
Yeah, you got mad.
I got mad at her. I was like,
he thought I was teasing him or something.
Yeah,
like I saw him staring at something and thinking he was crazy. So he kind of like turned and started to walk away. So I called the dog, and we start to walk in, and he's ahead of me, and from behind me, I hear something from the roof land on the stairs behind us. So I turn and kind of peek around the corner, and here is this thing fully on the stairs. And I was just like, oh my God. So I quickly walked forward, grabbed the dog, and went towards the apartment. And when we were finally in, I had explained to him what I saw, and I was like I saw it on the stairs, and he pulled me, because I was staring at it, and he pulled me into the apartment and closed the door. And we both, he told me what he saw, and I was like, no way, I saw the same thing. And he was like, I thought you were teasing me. And I was like, what would I tease you for? Why would I even do that? And he was like, I don't know, I just assumed that it was me.
Now, have you discussed these episodes with any of your neighbors, any of the others in your building?
So we live in a Spanish neighborhood. Most people don't speak English, and they're not really comfortable talking about anything supernatural. The one night that it was about 2 weeks before we had saw the creature, we had seen a light in the sky.
Okay.
And multiples of our neighbors saw this thing in the sky, and we actually recorded it. It's not the best video. But there was people around us that saw, and when we tried to talk to them about this, it felt very same to the way that we were raised, like how the Native Americans treated supernatural things. You don't talk about it. You shouldn't film it. Shouldn't take pictures of it. So immediately they were like, no, we don't want to talk about this. So,
now, do you see that light as a portent?
Actually,
it started it all. I mean,
yeah. Well, no, because the shadow. We were walking one night, and I felt like something was following us.
Yeah.
And this was like a couple of months ago. I felt like something was following us, and we kept hearing like footsteps behind us
and shuffling, like there was somebody shuffling between cars. And we do walk late at night, so I mean, it's happened before where somebody's actually been in the shadows.
So I actually started filming with my phone, and we posted the video on Reddit, and you can see like 15 seconds into the video, there's a shadow figure that comes out of the wall, bends down, and then stands back up, and people are like, well, no, that's got to be a person. But then you watch, and the figure, as it stands back up, the lower half of the body just kind of disappears.
Okay. Do you think that this this horned thing could be a form created and taken by that same being?
I think it might be related to it, because it's just like like after we saw the light in the sky, and there was another person right there with us.
Yeah, there was 2 other people that saw it with us.
The first guy, he came out of his apartment. He was coming out for a smoke, and we were like, whoa, do you see that in the sky? And he looked up, and he's like, what the hell is that?
Yeah.
And we were videotaping it, and then another person, like, in a different area.
It was like an hour that we saw this light. and I've lived on an Air Force base most of my life, beside one, and I know the certain indications of what a plane is. You know, it needs lights, it moves a certain way, it has certain indications. This zigzagged in the sky.
Literally went one direction and
immediately
180-degree direction change, and without even turning around.
See, what's interesting to me is that up until now, everything you've described has been very you focused.
Mm-hmm.
Like
yeah.
you're the X factor, you're the lightning rod. But it seems that this is the first first thing you told me that how do I put this? Seems more location focused. That is, you know, this light was seen by people other than you, etc. Do you think? Yeah, and yet it's like, okay, so you have this lifetime of experiences, and then you move to a place where this happens. It's like, what are the odds? Do you feel like you were like kind of like circumstances were arranged so that you would end up in this building? Or
actually kind of do, because
okay,
when we first started looking for apartments in the area that we're in, we saw this place, and Missy was the one that said, I just have a really good feeling. I had a dream about this place. I had a
vision of happiness. I had foreseen that we would be happy in this place. And I was like, dude, there's just something about this place that we just need to go here. I always call it my gut. You know, I'd say my gut is telling me that we need to take this place. And there were other places that were much better than this one and not as expensive. And we went with this one because of this gut feeling that I had.
And what really kind of like made sure that we kind of got this place, somebody else had actually, before we actually committed to it, somebody else had actually decided they were going to get the place, and they were supposed to put their deposit on that day when we actually came back and said, hey, we want to put it, we want to actually get this place. They were like, unfortunately, somebody else said they want it first, and they have till tomorrow to actually come in and put their deposit. And they didn't put their deposit on, so they were like, yeah, it's yours if you want it.
It defaulted to you.
Yeah.
That's interesting, because like I don't have any intuition like that personally. My gut tells me when and what to eat, and that's it.
I've always have gut feelings. Like he got a job, and the job, I knew that this job was going to, in essence, backpedal after 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And I kept saying to him, don't burn your bridge at the other job, because you're gonna have to go back. Yeah. And he was like, that's not gonna happen. This is a solid job. He hires veterans. And 2 weeks later, it turns out he got fired, and he went back to the other job the same day and said, like, hey, you know, I know I didn't leave on bad terms. Can I come back? And they were like, absolutely. So, you know, I have that happen a lot.
Yeah. And your story of, you know, just how of your moving there and how fascinating that turned out to be, that reminds me of my own family's story of how my grandparents moved into my father's childhood home. Because it was a very nice home. It was a showpiece. And the kind of place you would have thought would have been really expensive. You would have thought that they would have been able to afford because they were poor. Mm-hmm. And yet they managed to get it very cheap, essentially, because the person selling it no longer wanted it and was very desperate to get rid of it. So they ended up with a home well above their price range, well above their budget. You know, stroke of luck. Those the way circumstances work like that are interesting, especially because, you know, my family, you know, like you, is a bunch of lifelong experiencers, and that was a house in which a lot of weird stuff took place. So, to backpedal a little bit, your voice has been imitated, Michael.
Yes.
Multiple times.
Multiple times. I've messed around because after hearing somebody just calling out in my voice, it's been like, okay, well, let's see what else they'll copy. So I have done like some voiceovers for a few things.
And so he does this like growl, and he does it with the dog, and the dog knows that it means playtime in essence. Mm-hmm. So when we were on this walk, he did the growl, and we laughed, and not even 30 seconds later, from this tree, up in this tree,
came the same
exact growl. Like, I mean, I'm married to him. I know what his vocal range is. I've heard these voices that he can do. So I know what he sounds like.
I mean, I can do anything like this.
Yeah. And this literally sounded like him doing this growl that he just did. And so I stopped and looked up in the tree, and he put his hand on the middle of my back and pushed, like, keep on going. And it did it again, a second time, the same growl again from up in the tree. And we were like, just keep walking, just keep going, try to ignore it.
But when it does mimic it back, it almost has like a metallic sound to it. Like it doesn't sound like
it's a recording.
Yeah.
It sounds artificial. It sounds inorganic.
Yeah.
That's a comment.
And as soon as you hear it, I don't know, for me anyways, I feel like I would imagine what a predator would give off to you. Like, I just feel like something's wrong and I should run.
Yeah, we've gone out like a couple of nights now, and when you're outside, you hear nature sounds like crickets and sounds in the distance, bats. We have bats in the area, so we'll hear the bats. There's been a couple of nights that you go out and there is not a sound anywhere. Like, you can't even hear the cars in the distance. And we live near a highway, so
2 observations. One, the artificial sound of the voice, that's very common. People who have received phantom phone calls, people who have encountered different entities such as the Men in Black, often describe the voice as being very inorganic, very somewhat drony and monotonous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same with like Black-Eyed Children. That's a very common motif. And what you're describing with the sounds, that actually has a term. It's called the Oz factor. The British researcher Jenny Randalls first coined the term decades ago, which she described as the sudden cessation of expected natural sounds. Once again, I don't know why it does that or why that happens, but let me ask you this: when it does happen, do you notice a change in the passage of time? Like, your perception of time kind of changes. Time seems to move slower.
Yeah. Because the walk that we go on every night is it's actually only about a 10-minute walk, but every time that we seem to be out there and we hear things, it's almost like it's an hour walk, and it's only a 10-minute walk. I do it every day, like, because I during the day I do this walk every day, 3 to 4 times a day. So I'm used to how long it should take. And we would always come back and I'd be like, oh my gosh, it's an hour after we left. And he'd be like, I guess we just kind of like lost track of time.
Yeah, I've had that experience too. About a decade ago, a friend of mine and we were hiking in a public park. This was in the northern regions of Wisconsin. A public park that is known for strange phenomena. Keep in mind, this was early summer. This was early afternoon. This was a day where there were people there. There were cars in the parking lot. There were campers, hikers, fishermen, etc., etc. And we did not go far. We crossed the bridge from the main area where like the cabins and the tents are, and we just went into the woods beyond that, into the trail beyond that. And I swear it was Oz factor, no sounds whatsoever. Creepy time dilation. We thought we'd been out there for hours. It definitely took on this fairy tale Rip Van Winkle like quality. When we got back, we checked the time, I think on his cell phone. We'd been gone for 20 minutes tops.
Now, I've had experiences with time dilation quite a bit, actually. Where actually one time when I was a kid, we were out. Like I said, we lived on the streets. We actually had set up a campsite in Missouri, and I went to go get some water. There was a fresh spring. I went to go get a bucket of water, and it was dark out. So I bent down to get the water, and a water moccasin actually jumped out of the water and came straight at my face. And I could actually, as it came out of the water, I could actually see it slowed down almost to the point where it looked like it was going at like maybe a tenth of the actual speed. But if you've ever seen a snake strike, it literally was coming straight at my face. Second. And I backed up just as it got to where within actually hitting me. And I backed up and I actually got away from it fast enough that I was, from where I was already back at the top of the hill within less than like 3 seconds.
Yeah.
And I was like, wait a minute. I literally was just down there and that thing came straight at me. So I've had experiences like that where time seems to just slow down to the point where it's not actually happening.
Yeah. That's interesting because that's like a brief episode of it.
But I've had like incidents where I'll be like doing something and then you lose track of time and then you realize, wait, I was only doing it for what I thought would be like a minute, but it felt like you were doing it for hours.
Mm-hmm.
And just anything like a almost like a blackout episode where you'd be like, where I'd be like walking somewhere and then next thing I know, I'm completely in a different area from where I started at. That was maybe like a good 200-300 yards from where I started. And I was like, and you just look around like, did that just happen?
Yeah. Here's a question. The woman in white, is she aware of the deer man? What does she have to say about this?
Actually, she's been really quiet lately. So I haven't had really much of an episode with her, but we have seen shadow people around here. Okay. So it's almost as if like she's kind of being held back or whatever. Because
it feels like it's very much a predator, because the way that the animals react, because we actually have a stray cat that we took in, and she actually would go on the walks with us, and she doesn't go outside anymore since stuff started happening. She refuses to go outside.
Since we've seen him, she won't go out of the house, and she like literally was begging at the door to get out before.
Yeah. And now she absolutely refuses to go outside.
Yeah, animals know. It's always good to observe animal behavior in regards to these things. But you've got that gut instinct to scram when you hear these things, right?
Yeah.
That's that's a very common. I have a cousin who experienced that once. That kind of just intuition to get out of there. Do you think the woman in white could be afraid of this entity, or it could be suppressing her in some way?
I actually think so, because like I said, I see the brownies all the time.
Yeah.
And when it's around, they stay far away.
Yeah, if we go for a walk and you see something dart, we think it's we do have strays around here, so you think, oh, it's a cat or it's this. If you see animals outside or the brownies, then the things aren't there. And when we don't see them, we know that it's there because it's just a matter of time before you feel that presence. It's for whatever reason, it's always up high, like it's looking down on you, like a cat, how a cat hunts.
Yeah.
Like that's what cats do. Cats stay up in, trees to pounce down on you. And it absolutely feels like that. And sometimes I can't do it. I'll say to him, nope, we got to go back inside. I can't finish this walk. We need to cut it short because the way that our complex is, you can cut through the middle of the complex to get to your apartment because the courtyard is there.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll be like, we'll be halfway through. And normally it's when we pass that tree. That's why we got them to put a light in the tree. So now we get to fully walk in the light. It's a little bit better, but it's still not 100%.
Okay. Now these shadows you're seeing, what do they look like? What's their shape, their apparel?
It varies. Like sometimes it's really tiny things that you just see at the corner of your eye. Sometimes it looks like there's a person standing there, and then all of a sudden the person's gone. Like they just disappear in nowhere. And I never take my phone when we go for a walk, and when he does, you can't get your camera up quick enough to take a picture of whatever it is.
I was actually going to say, while we've been on the conversation with you, something's been messing around in our bedroom.
Yeah.
All of our animals are out here with us. And one of the cats actually went to go look in the bedroom and tore off out of the bedroom like a bat out of hell, like something was chasing it. So I went to go look in the bedroom, and you could actually, as I went in, I saw something like disappear into the closet. So.
Oh.
Yeah.
We're firm believers in don't talk about it because this is what happens.
Yeah.
And as you heard on the conversation about the vacuum earlier,
mm-hmm.
So, and then heard a couple of tinks on our window while we've been on the phone as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's a very common thing that we get. It sounds like, especially like we stay up very late at night, and you'll hear what sounds like someone tapping on the metal door. This complex has very old doors. You can't open them without extremely hearing them. So you know when someone unlocks and opens their door. You can't not hear it. And you hear all the time people tapping on the door, and he'll be looking at the peephole or the window while it's tapping, and we can't see anything.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know what that's all about, but that happens a lot.
Now, Michael, I want to apologize to this because it was like a half hour ago. You brought up the fact that you were RH negative and you wanted to go into that. And then we got sidetracked for like almost a half hour. So let's backtrack to that and pick up where we left off there. It's my understanding you've had many experiences as an RH negative, many things. Like medical things. Why don't we talk about that? What's going on with that?
Well, for one, I'm pretty sure, like, I'm
magnetic.
Yeah, I've got high levels of acid in my skin. So if I wear metal, I can't wear any jewelry because any jewelry will actually melts off me. I've had gold, silver, and titanium wedding rings, and they actually melted off of me. The titanium ring melted at the solder point. The gold rings actually like
deteriorate. It's like they deteriorate.
Yeah, and
he is forever. He can't touch any TVs or monitors or things like that because as soon as he touches them, they turn off. They stop working. They get. He was working on my mom's computer, and he touched the monitor, and she now has a spot from his thumb where the pixels died from him touching, because he has like this electrical charge that comes from him.
Yeah.
So
I also
your
get
rings,
shocked a lot. Sorry, go ahead.
Your rings, did they just like literally dissolve into liquid?
The gold and silver ones, actually, like where the bonding points are, it would melt right through the bonding point, or
it slowly starts to shrink, and it gets to a point where it's so thin, it's like, yeah, it's like it's almost like it doesn't turn, it's not metal anymore. It's like rubbery, or he just interferes with the metal itself. We found this with the gold, and we talked to the doctor, and that's when we first found out about the RH blood, and he said that that's very common with some people. And he said, go to titanium, because that won't happen. Around the same time, we were also trying to get pregnant, and that's when we found out that me being negative and him being positive.
No, you're positive, I'm negative.
Oh, whatever. That it actually has a less chance of us having children because of that. So we went through like stuff for that, and that's what they ended up telling us, was that, because one's positive, one's negative, you have a lesser chance. And that's when we started to actually look into, RH blood and what that means.
So electrical interference is, best I can tell, very commonly reported. I've never had that effect.
Actually, there was one time when I was a kid. I was probably about 9 years old. We were down in Oklahoma City there, and my mom had rigged up our van to be able to be plugged in, and she was not the greatest wiring expert, and she had it plugged in, and I went to step into the van, and I was in a puddle, and I literally got electrocuted, and I was just like, this feels weird. Wasn't actually like getting, it felt like the electrical impulse was going through me. I could feel the shock, but I wasn't getting like blasted away from.
And that happened again. Remember when you were doing with the antiques?
Yeah.
And they said that they turned off the power, and they didn't. And he was taking it was like a clock or something off the wall.
Mm-hmm. And wall sconce off the wall, and it was wired into the house. And they're like, oh yeah, the power's off. There's no problem. So I had nothing to cut the wires with, so they gave me a steak knife that was a wooden steak knife with a metal blade all the way through, the full tang blade. Mm-hmm. And I went to cut the wire, and literally the knife melted in my hand because the electrical shock, the shock went through me, and it melted the knife blade. The blade actually had blackened, and part of it was gone. That's how much of an electrical shock it was. But it just like it hit me, and my boss was like, "Oh my God, are you okay?" I was like, kinda.
Yeah, and they sent him home, and I was like, "Yeah, we're going to the hospital because I'm sure your innards are fried." And they couldn't find anything wrong with him at all, besides the fact that his hair was standing up.
Yeah, my hair, there was actually smoke. At the time, smoke actually came off my hair. That's how much it hit me.
So you withstood and survived something that would kill most people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
Actually, when I was in South Florida, South Florida is very high for lightning strikes.
Yeah.
We actually, I was coming out of my bedroom, and my dad was coming out of his room. I was probably like 18. A bolt of lightning actually came right through our living room, and it, like, the shock actually hit both of us. It literally went right through from the front door all the way throughout the back door. Oh. And yeah. So yeah, I've had a couple of experiences like that. I've even had a couple of near-death experiences, or actually one time I actually died and came back. I was
well, good. Yeah, I am. I'm just thinking of what to ask you about that. You've had You've been
Yeah.
resurrected twice.
I fell off a 4-story building
more
when I
than
was
that.
10,
Okay.
and ended up breaking pretty much both knees, both elbows, my right arm, 4 ribs, and my jaw, and like half my face isn't my original face, but I could have swore I died, but I actually got up and walked from where I landed into a indoor building, up 2 flights of stairs, and collapsed, and somebody caught me. Sorry, a little dry here.
Okay, we all sound kind of disgusting tonight.
Yeah.
Uh,
So, but the doctor said, I don't know how you lived through that.
yeah.
And for one, to get up and walk afterwards is beyond belief. And they were like, I was in the hospital for over 6 months with surgeries and recovery, and just being put back together that time. And then the second time was, you asked about in my 20s. We were out camping, and my parents went to leave. We had a campsite with 2 trailers at it. One was my trailer and one was their trailer. And we went to leave. It was the end of the weekend. We went to leave. They had left, and I was finishing packing up for my trailer. And I went to leave, and my car wouldn't start. So I was like, I couldn't get it to start no matter what. So I had to spend the night there. And while I was there, their trailer actually caught on fire. And it was an electrical issue there that had caught the insulation in the trailer on fire. And I went to try and put it out, and there was other people around the area. So I was calling out as much as I could, but I was getting massive smoke inhalation. And by the time the fire department actually got there, I had pretty much extinguished the fire, but I had so much smoke inhalation that I actually, they said I died, technically, because I had stopped breathing, and I didn't have a pulse, and they were trying to revive me, and they couldn't revive me. And then after like 2 or 3 minutes, I just sat up on my own.
Mm-hmm.
And during that time, like while I was technically dead, I had actually had that like flash of light. Somebody was like there waiting for me, and they said, "No, you're not ready yet. Go back."
Mm-hmm.
And then like right after that, I snapped up, and they're like, "Oh my God." And the thing is, the fire department didn't resurrect me, because they were going to start doing everything, and they said that they had no oxygen or anything like that. And I could hear all this at the same time, because I could actually see from above what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
And then like they were like, and then I heard that, "No, you're not ready. Go back." And then it's like I slammed into my body and popped up.
Okay. Have you ever interfered with streetlights accidentally?
Yes.
The
Yep.
slider phenomenon, they call it.
Yeah. I've had
even here in the complex.
We have lights in here that are like the high energy efficient light bulbs.
Yeah.
And if I go to touch the lamp, we've had 3 of the bulbs blow.
And not even that. When we have lights on both sides of us on this big couch, and the one on his side of the couch, the light bulb is replaced like every week.
Yeah.
Mine has been the same bulb since we've moved in.
Okay.
So mine never flickers. It never does anything. It never turns off. His flickers, turns off, has to be replaced, blows, pops. Tons of things happen like that he interferes with them. The same as cell phones. He has to replace his cell phone way more than I have to replace mine. And I'm very accident prone. I break my phone all the time.
Mhm.
You know, and his just like his battery dies, but we always buy identical phones.
Yeah, we have the identical phone. My phone that we're on right now, before we started this conversation, I fully charged it to make
Mhm.
sure that I had a full battery, and it's already at 67%. And that's I only unplugged it when we started the conversation, so
Yeah,
it was
he
at
never has
100%.
his battery like completely will die, and you know, even though he won't be on it, or he'll just be holding it, or it's in his pocket, where I'm sitting here playing, you know, phone games and
Mhm.
burning through my battery, and it, you know, his has already died, and I'm like, how did yours die? Mine's, you know, still fine. Like, this makes no sense. That happens a lot.
Now, I hate to backtrack here, but how long have you been living in this location?
A year.
Yeah, we've just been here a year.
Okay, and how long was it until after you moved in that when you saw the light in the sky?
It's it's
About
been
9 months. Yeah.
yeah, it's only been a few months now since we've seen that.
Okay.
For that, like, it was probably the 6 month mark there where we started seeing the shadows following us around, and then, like
Okay.
I said, the light came a little bit ago. So it's only been like just mostly recently that things really started amping up.
So you had a 6 month reprieve.
Yeah.
Do you feel that the shadows you're seeing now are the same ones you saw as a child?
No, I think these are like, it's like something's drawn to the area,
Okay.
and then are like started noticing me and was like, hey, that looks like a guy that would be fun to follow and mess around with.
I always say it's, oh,
Yeah.
hey, you're the light in the dark. You know, they're attracted to that light, to him as a beacon.
Now, about your electrical experiences, have you ever sought to like harness these and use them?
I've actually
That thing?
So he used to shock me all the time, if that's what you mean.
Yeah,
That's a vulgar display of power.
Right? All the time he would be like, if he touches shopping carts, he'll electrocute, like he gets a shock from it. So normally what he'll do before he touches the cart is touch me to discharge so that he doesn't get the shock. Instead, I get the shock.
Yeah.
I don't grab my car doors by my bare hands anymore. Yeah. I usually will use my key to open the car door and then grab it with my foot because of the rubber shoe. Yeah. Because if he touches it with if I touch it with my hand, I'll get like a massive shock. I've actually had my thumbs burned from like just static electricity.
Yeah, I think when it comes to my RH negativism, my RH negativity, let's just call it that, I don't really have experiences like that. I mostly just have the anatomical characteristics.
Yeah, I was listening to your one of your other podcasts, and you were talking about and I was like, huh, I've got, you were talking about the long toe, or the second toe longer than the big toe.
Yep.
I've got that. The pointed ears.
Yeah.
I've got that. And like, I actually have I've got really good night vision.
Yeah.
Like extremely good night vision. I've got fangs. I actually do have like extremely exaggerated sharp canines.
Yeah, he had them filed. They were filed down when he was younger.
Like Ricky Gervais kind of teeth, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, I had to have porcelain caps put on 2 of my teeth because the canines look like actual like vampire fangs.
Okay. But that could have like practical applications though.
Oh yeah, it was great for when I was younger, and you get to those goth girls that are really into the vampires, and they're like, "Are those real?" And I'm like, "Yeah, Can you bite my neck? Yeah.
I was wondering, do you have the same problem I have with like your skin drying out easily?
Yes.
Yeah.
Actually, I have to,
he has to use a special like cream
on my face.
now.
Yeah, I don't really tan, I just burn. And
Oh,
and I've noticed
I
I don't dehydrate easily to the point where it's like life threatening, but my throat dries out easily, and I'm always drinking fluids as a result.
yeah. If I go out into the if I stay out in the sun too long and I get a sunburn, and this really pisses everybody off, but if I get like a massive sunburn, the very next day it's gone. So
That I've never heard of.
I think that's more because you're a Native American. That's
Yeah.
very common with all of our family.
Like we would like I could lay out for hours, get this massive, deep red sunburn, and the next day it's nice golden tan. So and that pisses off. What the other thing that really pisses everybody off is that when everybody gets major colds, they'll be sick for weeks, and if I get the cold 2 or 3 days later, I'm right back to normal.
Yeah, that's how my father is. That's not how I am, but I haven't actually gotten sick with like seasonal allergies.
It's extremely rare for him to get sick.
I haven't had a flu shot in 20 plus years because I don't get the flu.
Yeah, those are dubious anyway, of dubious value.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. At what age did your electrical propensity, when did that first show up? When did you first notice that, and how?
About 9 years old. Like I said, my mom wired our van so that it was plugged in, and I went to step up into it, and I was standing in a puddle, and literally like felt the shock go through me, and I was like, "Huh, that's kind of funny. Huh, let me do that again." And I kept, I was just like sitting there playing with it at the time and thinking, "This is pretty cool." And they're like, and somebody else touched the van and literally like, "What the hell was that?" Right? They were like shocked so hard, and because we were at an outdoor flea market, and she wanted to plug the van in and be able to plug in like a giant fan because it was hot and everything, and it had just rained the day before, so all the ground was still wet and everything. So like people were like, "Oh my God, this van's not even grounded right. What the hell?" And I was just sitting there like, "Yeah, this is fun."
Yeah, I've never had any experience like that. The closest I can remember is when I was a kid going to what is the place called in Wisconsin Dells? Steve Bartlett's. He's a magician, a stage magician who does tricks and shows like lights and electricity, and he has a place there, like an entertainment place, where if you put put your hands on this one object, you get like massive waves of static electricity. That's the closest to that I've ever experienced.
Yeah. I mean, you ever had that grip tester where it's supposed to shock you, and like I don't know if you've ever seen it like at carnivals or whatnot, where it's you grab on the two handles and it shocks you. And
I've had the one where you hold on to the one handle and it tells you how good you are as a lover.
Yeah, but this is like you go in and it like sends an electrical current for you to like shock you, but it's like to see how long you can hold on to it.
No, I've never used that.
Yeah, I've done that before and like
didn't let go.
Didn't let go at all until it stopped.
Okay.
And be like, yeah, no problem.
I remember that when we were dating. That's what he did. He did this like game, and they're like, "Oh, you get like 10 seconds in, and it's too much, and you stop." And he didn't stop. He just kept going, and everybody's like, "Oh, he's just showboating." And he was like, "When are you gonna turn it on?" And they're like, "The red light is on. It's on."
Yeah, they had this. There's these little games at like Spencer's, where each person holds a trigger. And as the light goes, it sends a shock to whoever's holding the handle. And like everybody they'd get hit and they'd be like, God damn it. And I'd just be like, okay, when's it going to start? Right. And I'd feel like it feels like just a little tingling sensation to me.
Okay, what other specific electrical experiences did you have growing up, like after that, like in adolescence, etc.?
Oh, like if I go to plug anything in at times,
Yeah.
I've literally like had the electrical outlets
Melt.
melt.
Okay.
Yeah, so like
he won't plug anything in. I have to plug it all in because he gets a shock on the outlet when it does that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had like I've had arcing like static electricity, like so bad that like I could literally reach out and to start to touch a piece of metal and you could actually see an arc of electricity come off of it to where it burns my fingers.
And do you think you could like harness this? I'm not going to call it an ability because it's involuntary, but harness this characteristic and turn it into an ability, be able to use it for specific purposes?
Probably if you tried.
I've never really thought of trying to do that. I mean, I have like used the static charges to like shock people really, really bad. I've actually a couple of times, like if I brush past her, you could actually see the burn mark on her, and you know, and like her family likes to do practical jokes, so my practical joke would be like walking up to her dad and like doing a static electrical charge and just shocking the hell out of him. He hates that.
Now, you told me earlier that you demonstrated some proficiency in your youth as a card reader, a little bit of psi ability.
Yeah, it was when I was really young. So like there was a guy that my mom was dating at one point who was a Native American shaman, and he wanted to test it out. So he was like he would hold up cards like business cards, not like tarot cards or anything like that. He'd actually he was a his main job was actually painting billboards.
Yeah.
He would do like painting billboards. So he had a bunch of business cards. So he would hold up a business card and ask me like, you know, name the person on the card. And I could name the person on the card without even seeing the front of the card. And I had like a pretty good success rate with that. And then he would hold up like different cards, you know, like playing cards and everything like that. And I could say, you know, the 8 of clubs, or you know, oh, it's the 10 of diamonds. And he's like, wow, you're really good at this. So you know, and I had quite a bit of proficiency with that. I could like my mom would say, you know, can you, she would say, you know, can you guess what we're going to do today? And I'd be like, uh I could see us going somewhere and say, you know, we're going to the fair or whatever for like, you know, doing business at this place or whatnot. And we'd actually go to like thrift stores, and I could actually find items like I found uh, a jacket one time, and I, you know, and found money in the jacket. So I'd always find like, you know, money here and there in different places, just knowing that, you know, this is going to be there and whatnot. So
Now, speaking of change, and this is going to sound silly, but have you ever melted through change? Like, have you ever had problems in the past paying for a payphone, or just getting a gumball out of a gumball machine or anything like that?
well, I have had experiences where like I'll go to like put money into a soda machine,
Yeah.
and it'll hold my money, and then I'll smack the machine, and all of a sudden like change will drop out of it, like
Okay.
massive amounts of change. I've actually had one machine that I put change in, and it wouldn't give me a soda. So I was like, damn it. And I tried to get my money back. And then all of a sudden, like $5 in change falls out. So, you know, and then like another time, like you go to put money in and it would just freeze up completely. So yeah, I have had instances where like weird things would happen like that.
But not melting.
But I haven't. But normally when it's melting the metal, it has to be in contact with my skin for quite a while. Like if I grab pennies, like brand new pennies, they'll tarnish within a day.
Okay. Within a day, like
you can actually
surface darkens. It's smudges.
Yeah, I've actually can touch it. Like if I grab a penny, and you can actually sometimes see my fingerprint in the penny as it's tarnishing.
Could you send me a photo of that at some point?
Yeah. Sure.
Now we have some time. I was going to ask, you know, in my research, it's become abundantly clear that paranormal phenomena, anomalous phenomena, whatever you want to call it, that it is generational. It attaches itself to families, and it is inherited. Meaning, if you are a lifelong experiencer, then it's usually likely that at least one of your parents was it as well. You probably have at least one aunt or uncle or cousin who also has, etc. Is that the case with you?
Well, I know my grandparents had
on your mom's side.
On my mom's side, had experiences. My grandfather was full-blooded Cherokee, and he would actually he actually had two solid gray pit bulls. One was named Ghost, and the other was Pepper. And he would not let them outside at night because he said the things outside would go after his dogs.
Yeah, it's often, my grandparent was the same way. It was always referred to as the thing that we don't talk about is what they referred to it as, which is still the thing that's how we describe it. We don't say I can't even say the words because it's very bad. We call it bad juju. Yeah. But his family was the same. That's something that we connected on. His grandfather told him that, you know, don't go outside. And if you hear anything in the woods that sounds odd, it means it is odd and you need to move away from it, ignore it. Don't try to communicate with it because it's not what you think it is and it's bad. And that's exactly, you know, my grandparents said the same thing, and that's what his grandparents said. It was like one of the first things that we connected to on our first date.
The not what you think it is, that line really sticks with me because this phenomena is deceptive. It misportrays itself, it misrepresents itself. It takes different forms. It leads you into believing that it's something that it's not. And, you know, nothing really good can come from succumbing to it.
Yeah. I mean, even like, I haven't really talked to my father in years, but when I did actually was around him, he actually had experiences before as well. He would like have like crazy experiences where he said like he would see things or whatnot, but we had a falling out a long time ago.
But he always believed that you have to have animals with you.
Yeah,
he had like anytime we've ever been with him, he's always had 9 dogs at one point. Like it's something about always having a large amount of dogs with you. You know, and that's like his one of his biggest things was, it's like, why do you have so many dogs? Oh, you have to have, you know. And he would get really upset if he had a couple dogs that got parvo, and he went under that 9-dog limit because 2 passed away. They immediately went out and got 2 dogs right away. And they paid an extremely large amount of money to make sure that they didn't get sick or anything like that, just because, you know, they believe that he had to have these dogs with him.
And what were they afraid of? What were they experiencing that they were using the dogs to ward off or to protect them from?
He wouldn't talk about it. Anytime you tried to talk to him about it,
I mean, when I would actually live with him, we actually had like I said, the shadows running around, but you could hear things outside at night. They actually lived out in the middle of the woods in Florida. And we could actually hear things outside at night. The dogs would freak out half the time. We could be asleep, and the dogs would like run to the back door. And there were cougars and everything out there, but you could actually see things in the night that weren't like
supposed to be there.
They were like bipedal, so you could see things in the night because they had where we lived. There was no like street lights or anything, so you actually had to mount your own streets, and you could see in the darkness where the street lights would actually end. Things would actually be moving around at night, and they lived on like 5 acres, and the next person over had another 5 acres. So you're about 10 acres away from anybody that was near you. So, and nobody walked at night because one, there was cougars outside, there were bears in the area. So you didn't go outside at night. And the things that you could see in the darkness weren't bears, because bears are a lot wider than what some of these things were.
Yeah.
So
what I was going to ask is, what did they look like? You said bipedal. I assumed you just meant they were just ill-defined shadow-type figures.
Yeah, pretty much. But you could hear like the scrapings at the windows. We actually like could hear like the tanking in the windows was always present. I actually, when I went in my room, I had 2 dogs that would stay with me, and during the night, like they would freak out at the window because something would be tapping at the window.
So this tinking at the window you're experiencing now, that's nothing new for you.
No, I've had that quite a bit.
And what other sounds would you hear, if any?
Just like, you know, that like weird scraping sounds. You know, just inconsistent weird noises. Like not like a normal howl of a coyote, but just like something, you know, trying to imitate it.
Yeah. You know? Once again, imitation. Emulation, trying to reproduce sounds that it knows will be familiar to the human percipient.
Right. We even had chickens out there at one point.
He had guard geese too. He had guard geese too.
Yeah, we had guard geese.
Yeah, he had like a bunch of geese that were specifically meant to guard. I guess that's a thing.
We actually, at one point, we thought we had a bobcat out there, and I stayed up like during the night and to watch for this bobcat, and something in the dark grabbed one of our geese, and like you could hear it, and I went to find it, and I thought it was a bobcat, but there was nothing there, but the geese was tore apart.
Oh.
Yeah.
So whatever these things were, they were capable of doing physical, like direct harm, damage.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I know when I was with them, we had one of the guard geese, one of the females, that it was there, and then you looked, and it was dead, and it was just like there was 3 seconds. Like, how did it just? And it wasn't just like, oh, it's dead. It's like completely like attacked by something. Very messy.
Within 3 seconds, like by just some unseen thing?
Yeah, like especially the one that I know that happened.
You could hear it cry out, and then it'd run outside, and it was gone. It was just tore apart.
Even though we were just right there, and there was nothing there. And again, they have on the property for lighting. He installed these like massive street light type lights. Mm-hmm. So it was very well lit up. The geese were there. We were taking care of the dogs, and then we went in the house, and then all of a sudden, the geese made the noise. Mm-hmm. So we went back out, and the geese was dead, and it looked like this massive bloody mess from the geese. And it was like, how did it kill it that quickly, and why didn't it take it? It didn't take it with it. It just left everything there.
Now, I'm not sure of the chronology here. Was this before you lived with her parents or after, or
it was before. It was when we were first dating. One of the first times, that he was introducing me to his parents. So we stayed the weekend, and this happened while we were there.
Okay. And then after you left your parents' home, where did you guys go after that?
Where did we go after we left her parents or my parents?
Her parents.
We bought our own house, and we had that house for a couple years, and then I got sick, and we had to go back into my parents. And when we moved back into my parents, things got even more active there, similar to the way it's active now.
So it was more active there. It was like, at that point, or by then, it wasn't just objects moving, etc. There were sounds and images.
Sounds, apparitions. There was actually in my parents' home, there's this spare bedroom that nobody likes to stay in. Mm-hmm. And it's actually decorated to be like a kid's room. So it has on the wall, it has really pretty paintings and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And the kids, like I said, we raised my niece and nephew, and that's where they were supposed to stay, but they never slept in that room. Yeah. And a couple of times they said that there was a guy in the closet. There was a guy that had spikes in the closet. Mm-hmm. And we were like, what the F? So we went in there, and we couldn't see anything, and they were probably about 6 or 7, old enough to know what a person would look like in a closet. Yeah. And they refused to stay in that room. And the fact no one stays in that room even now, it's just used for storage, just because you go into the room and you feel something's not right. Like it just feels wrong in there. My mom has said she says that's where the guy stays, the guy that lives. She believes that there's an older gentleman, mm-hmm. 2 kids, and the lady in white, which, follows us. She doesn't see that often, but
actually she said she hasn't seen the lady in a while since we've been gone.
Yeah.
So they said a man with spikes. They mean like spiked hair or a spiked wristband, like a punk rocker would wear, or?
No, they just said with spikes.
Like he had spike either on his hands or 4 hands. They were really scared, and they didn't really want to go into it, and we didn't really push them too much. Yeah. We just said, you don't have to sleep in there. You can either sleep out on the couch, or you can sleep in the bed with us. It's no big deal. And they would always choose to either sleep with my parents or sleep with us, or we would set up a tent and they would sleep in the
living room.
They couldn't sleep in there. Now they're 15 and 16 now, and they still will not stay in that bedroom. And they actually lived in the house with my parents.
So, yeah, I found, to my experience, as I said before, there are in affected houses, let's just call them affected houses, mm-hmm. there are always certain parts, certain rooms, or certain floors where it's always more intense.
Yeah.
And then you'll have other rooms where it's just normal, and it's like night and day.
Yeah.
You said sounds and apparitions. What kind of sounds? What kind of apparitions?
You would hear like children running all the time. You would hear children laughing.
Footsteps on the stairs.
Yeah.
Giggling. Just kids laughing and playing, and it'd be like you'd go around, nobody's home but you, and you're hearing these things, and it was crazy at times. Like I said, the one time that I got really upset, I was like, you all came in, I heard you stomping around upstairs, I heard the kids laughing and playing around, and then you didn't even say hello when I yelled up, and nobody came down to say, hey, how's it going down here or anything. And I was like, I was literally like yelling at them.
Oh, he was so mad.
Oh, I was so pissed. I was like cursing and just yelling at them, like, why the hell would you come home and not even do,
We have a very large family. So there's about 14 of us. And every person has said, something. My dad is an atheist. And he said that one night he saw a glowing orb that went from their bedroom out the open door and into the spare bedroom that nobody goes into. He's like, I'm positive I saw that. He said, but I don't know what it was. And he's like, I know. He's a very logical thinker. So he was like I know electricity can do that. Like a ball of electricity can technically do that. And I'm like, Dad, it wouldn't do that without destroying everything in its path electrically. I'm pretty sure you saw like an actual orb. And he's a firm, nope, that didn't happen. Nope. It doesn't matter how many things happen. Even if he can't explain it, he just nopes it out.
Yeah, and after we moved from their place, we actually got our own place for a while. Just before we moved here back to the States, we were in a apartment complex that used to be an old folks, like a geriatric mental asylum.
Yeah.
And we were in there, and we had our own apartment, and we, like, both of us suffer with migraines, so we black out our bedroom window all the time to like reduce light coming in. Well, we had our bedroom window blacked out, and there was lights coming from the bedroom when the lights were off. The lights were off, and you could see like unusual lights appearing on like areas of the wall that shouldn't have lights anywhere in them.
Yeah.
And then we'd hear like people moving around in the apartment when we were sleeping.
And in the one area in that apartment complex, it used to be the kitchen. And it's now the laundry room. And anytime we would go and do laundry, you heard what sounded like people in the kitchen. And he was the apartment manager for that complex. So he did a lot of like cleaning, and he'd be cleaning in the hallway, like cleaning a window or something. And he could swear he heard like cupboard doors open and close, and he'd go in there to say like hi to a resident or something, and there wouldn't be anybody in there.
Michael, it's interesting. You saw orbs growing up, and then years later, your father-in-law would see an orb in his room.
Yeah,
that's pretty interesting.
And they only saw they don't see things as much now that we're not living with them.
Yeah.
And now they just like because I talked to her 2 weeks ago, and I was like, hey, like how is the activity there? Because it's kind of crazy here. And I told her what was going on here and how upset I was about it all. And she's like, the funny thing is, it's pretty calm. She says we don't really have anything that happens. She said every now and then you hear the pots and pans, wiggle and jiggle. And she said, but other than that, it's pretty quiet.
Well, was there phenomena going on in there before you moved in?
No, actually,
there was nothing. Yeah.
Before we moved in, before they actually like looked up there to see if anybody had ever passed away or anything like that. The property actually used to be the drive-in theater for that area. And the owner of the drive-in theater built their house there. So the house was never lived in before the owner of the drive-in theater, and they never passed away in the house. They never, So, and nobody's ever passed away there. So like all the activity. And
it only happened once we moved in.
And it's interesting that it kind of continued after you left.
Yeah.
Yeah, like a residual.
Yeah.
Haunting almost.
Yeah, my mom, she often jokes. She says that we awakened it. She said, you came here, you woke it up, and now it's upset, and then we left, and it seemed to quiet back down for the most part. I mean, every now and then she says that she can hear somebody downstairs, and right now nobody lives in the basement. They're not renting it out or anything. And she said, I could swear that it sounds like you guys are still down there.
Oh, it's
I
just
was
a
like,
lingering odor.
yeah. I was like,
Yeah.
Mom, don't say that. It makes me think like I'm dead and I'm still down there.
Yeah. Do you have any other stories you hadn't thought of earlier that you'd like to share, that you'd like to discuss?
A lot of stuff that's been happening lately, mostly is these like seeing things that we both are seeing. Whereas before, you would always be like one person would see it and the other person wouldn't see it.
Yeah.
And like I was out walking without him the other day, and he was sitting on the couch, and he's he's gotten sick, so he didn't come out with me, and he said I'll be right there, but then he decided to stay and sent me a text message, but I didn't bring my phone, and I was in the courtyard, and I heard him from around the corner go, hey, and I went, hey, and he didn't say anything back, so I was like, ugh. The dog finished going to the bathroom, so I was like, whatever, we'll just go. And I come around the corner and he's not there. And I went into the apartment and I was like, did you have an attack? Are you okay? And he was like, no, I decided to stay. I sent you a text message. And I was like, yeah, but then you opened the door and yelled, hey, to get me to come back? And he's like, no, I wasn't outside at all. But I clearly heard him yell, hey, to me. Like it was him around the corner, but he wasn't there. I didn't immediately rush around the corner to see him because I just thought he would be, coming around eventually. It's been a lot of things like that, like
Yeah.
a lot of activity outside.
Yeah, we actually had one time where we have insomnia, so we're usually up really late. And this was about 4 a.m, and something started knocking on the door. So I went to go to the door, and you mentioned black-eyed children earlier, and she goes, just be careful, it might be a black-eyed child. And I was like,
no, I said, just if anybody's there, you don't let them come in. And he went, what? And I said, don't let them come in.
And I was just like, yeah, I'm not answering the door, I'm just looking through the peephole. Look through the peephole, nobody was there. So
Yeah.
And it was a loud bang.
Yeah.
It sounds to me like what you'd experienced there was a spirit mimic. That's a very common experience that I've read about, is entities, intelligences, whatever you want to call them, imitating humans, imitating the voice of someone you know, imitating the appearance of someone you know. I've read a story of it was a man who, when he was in junior high years before, he'd seen his mother, what he thought was his mother, walking into a gas station. He called her name and she just ignored and walked past him. Turns out she was actually at home. When he asked her about it later, she was at home that morning and had no idea what he'd experienced. That's just one example. And once again, what's the agenda there? What's the motivation there? What are they doing? Why are they doing it? I have no idea.
I forgot to say this, I also get the doppelganger effect a lot.
Where a lot of people come up to him and they're just like, hey, and they say a name, and he's like, no, my name's Mike, I don't know who you think I am. And they're like, oh my gosh, you look exactly like, and then they name somebody, and it's like,
as a matter of fact,
that's not me.
As a matter of fact, the first day when we moved to Canada, we went to the grocery store, and her mom's like, if you want to get anything, just, we'll go shopping and we'll pick you guys up anything you want. And as soon as we walked into the grocery store, we were in there shopping for a little bit. This lady comes over, Dave, how you doing? I haven't seen you in years. I'm like, my name's not Dave, ma'am. And she's like, what? Oh my God. She's like, are you sure you're not Dave? I'm like, my name's Michael. And she's like, oh, I'm so sorry. So, and when I was in high school, we were going to my prom, and we went to this little out of the way Italian restaurant, and everybody in the restaurant's looking at me like I've got my pants down around my ankles, and I'm like, what's going on? And one of the wait staff goes, Mario, what are you doing out here? And I'm like, I'm not Mario. And they're like, oh my God, you look just like Mario. And they go in and grab the guy from the other room and the back of the restaurant, and they're like, oh my God. And they actually got a picture of us together, and we looked a lot alike. And
like brothers.
Yeah, they were like, you two could pass off as twin brothers.
Yeah.
And they were like, it worked in my favor that time because we got a free antipasta for our appetizer, which might be. Go ahead.
I've never experienced anything like that. Although when I was young, everyone said that I looked like Macaulay Culkin.
Yeah.
Which I guess because the Home Alone series was like really popular at the time.
Yeah.
I do know, or I kind of know a guy who has that same experience, that same ongoing type of experience. I don't know his name, but I've seen him around town, and I've spoken with him once or twice. He works, I think, for the city government as an inspector of some sort, because I always see him at restaurants. I don't know, he fixes things for restaurants or something. When I saw him, I was standing in line at the takeout line at a Thai restaurant one night, and he was standing next to me. I could have swore he was someone I'd known in high school. You know, someone who had graduated like 2 years before I did, that I kind of saw around in the halls and never knew who he was. And I said, so I asked him, I was like, hey, did you go to insert the name of the high school I attended back during, insert the years that I was in high school? He was like, no, not at all. But I was like, oh, well, he goes, damn, you look really familiar. He's like, yeah, I get that constantly. A lot of people think I look like a lot of other people.
Yeah, I get that all the time. Like we go to a grocery store, even here when we first got back here, people were just like, "Oh yeah, I know you. You went to blah blah blah," and I was like, "No, we just moved here." And before we moved here, we actually were in Vegas, and the last time I ever was in Vegas was almost 30 years ago, and people were like, oh, you're Steve. We know you. Hey, Steve, how's it going? I'm like, nope, not Steve. Never been to Vegas. Haven't been to Vegas in forever. So, yeah, I get that all the time where somebody's like mistaking me for everybody else, and it's weird at times because like random people coming up to you and saying, hey, yeah. So.
I really have no insight into that. I've never looked into it in any depth. I don't know. I don't really have anything to tell you about that. But I'm making a mental note now to start researching it, see what's going on. It could have a mundane explanation. It could just be that, maybe a lot of people just aren't very observant when it comes to details.
Or after time, your mind kind of forgets the face, but they kind of look similar. I can see that happening.
Yeah, I like I said, it's that doppelganger effect where somebody looks like you. So I guess I look a lot like everybody.
Well, there are people who look eerily like other people.
Mm-hmm.
I remember in the summer of 2009, I think, I was in Yellowstone National Park. And there was a man there, an older man, that I saw at, on the trails and the shopping places, etc., who looked just like George Carlin.
Wow.
A bit taller, but other than that, just like George Carlin. and this was like a year after the real George Carlin died. So just eerie, just eerie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there's I don't know if you've seen this, but Glenn Howerton, the actor who plays Dennis Reynolds on It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Mm-hmm.
There's a meme circulating that he looks a lot like Lindsey Buckingham from Fleetwood Mac, and he does.
Huh.
I've seen that with Will Ferrell and the drummer from. Is it? It's not Aerosmith. What is it, the one drummer? Huh?
Chad Smith from the Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Yeah, yeah,
yeah. See, this stuff is interesting, but I don't think it's I don't think it's really anomalous. I think you know, clay can only be molded in so many shapes.
Yeah.
I mean, there's like a mathematically limited number of faces and facial structures that people can possibly have. Sooner or later, you run out of unique designs and you start to recycle.
Exactly.
Apparently, I've been recycled quite a bit.
Yeah, Oh, so yeah. What else has been going on lately? Anything you haven't told me? Because we've covered a lot of ground tonight.
I think we've gone over pretty much everything. It's. I mean, we have been experiencing the stuff that's just been going on just recently. On the humanoid encounter site, there was a guy who actually put out a story just the other day that he was experiencing the same kind of like creature that we've been seeing, and him and his whole family have seen it. And he actually said that one night his windows are like 7 feet off the ground, and he heard the noise, and he opened the blinds of his window, and he came face to face with it. And he said it had glowing orange eyes. It looked like a almost like a wolf's head, but if all the hair, like if it had mange, and it was 7 feet off the ground staring at him. And he said that in the story he read that he and his family were planning on going out and hunting it. Mm-hmm. And I said to them, don't do it. Whatever you do, don't do it. These things hunt in packs.
Yeah. Yeah, and I doubt your mundane weaponry would put a dent in it.
Yeah. He said like they were out fishing late at night, and they heard what sounded like something dragging chains, and then heard this weird loud woman scream, and they thought it was like his mom and his sisters back at the house. Mm-hmm. So they started heading back, and then they heard the chains dragging behind them, and they had a gun with them. So mm-hmm. He turned his shot at the ground, and they heard like almost like a laughter afterwards. You can go on the humanoid encounters and read it. And then I put out what we experienced, and somebody else from Germany commented on that post about seeing or experiencing something very similar. And he was asking, if your story is real, please, dear God, and he sounded like really freaked out. Yeah. And he actually had a point where he wouldn't explain any further about what they were experiencing.
Yeah.
So
I'd like, actually, if you could send these guys my way, I could, I'd like to speak with them.
Sure.
Yeah, I'd like to, because it dovetails very neatly with what we've been discussing tonight. And honestly, this creature you're describing is entirely new to me. I've never read about anything like it. I've never heard of anything like it. So we may be on to a new addition to the Fortean canon here.
Somebody actually on our post.
Yeah, they linked
a
Filipino
creature that looked very
similar to the drawing we did.
Okay, yeah, if you could send me that, I'd really appreciate that.
Yeah.
Anyway, this has been Radio Free Magonia, the official podcast of the Magonian Research Group. As always, I'm your host, Michael Parrish. Special thanks tonight to Tom Godwin, and special thanks to our guests, Michael and Melissa. I'm sorry, I didn't remember your name.
That's all right.
It's been a pleasure having you. I really enjoyed this, and I hope our audience will too. Anyway,
thanks for having us.
Hey, it's no problem. Thanks for being on. Until next time, take it easy.
Bye-bye.
Bye.